Commission resumes. Mr. Mpofu, have we... Yes, I know, he's called witness. Mr. Mpofu? Mr. Mpofu? Now we have your attention, Mr. Mpofu. Now we've got your attention that we need something else from you, namely your witness.
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you, Chairperson.
Would you please remind the witness that he's still under oath?
Witness still under oath, Mr.
Cool. Yes, Mr. Zah, you were busy cross-examining the witness.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. Cross-examining the witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mtshamba.
Morning, sir.
Mr. Mtshamba, I just have a few more questions to go through with you. You'll recall in our brief discussion on Tuesday afternoon, you stated that if you had been told that you as an RDO were getting paid what RDOs at other mines were getting paid, you would have been very happy.
Uyakhumbula ngokugqibela kwethu uthe ubangaba wakuxelela uba ufumana okanye uzawufumana le mali efunyanwa zi-RDO kwezinye iimine kwezinye ishafti izawuvuyisa kakhulu loo nto. That is so.
Thank you. And you even said to me that when you arrived back from leave and you wanted to establish what the issue about the strike was, you understood that it was because the RDOs at Lonmin who were not at Korea, in other words, the other RDOs, had also wanted the allowance which Mr. De Costa had given to RDOs at Korea.
Uthe xa ubuya elifini ke ufuna ukwazi baqhubeka ntoni weva into yokuba ne-RDO zasekorea zifuna le mali allowance efunyanwa ngabanye. That is so.
Mr. Mtshamba, were you at any stage ever told that the RDO allowance was an allowance that would be given to all the RDOs at Lonmin and not just to the Korea RDOs?
Uke waxelelwa ke into yokuba le allowance izawunikwa i-RDO zonke eLonmin not ezasekorea nje qha. Khona ixesha apho ke yathethwa loo nto. Yes, I heard that from other people when I came back from leave.
Now, if that was the case, why, when you went on strike, when you came back, given that you would have been happy to be paid what RDOs at other mines were being paid, and given that the RDO allowance was to all the RDOs at Lonmin, why were you in strike? Where does the 12,500 come from at that point?
Ngoke kutheni ustrike le nto yale 12,500 ivelaphi xa ngabe uvile kuba i-RDO zonke apha eLonmin zizayifumana le allowance? When I came back from leave, the strike was already on.
So because it was on, you joined the strike?
Wathi ke ngoba sesiqalile istrike was joined xa ubuya. All the shafts were closed.
Did you ask anybody when you came back, where did this figure of 12,500 come from? Did anybody explain to you how this particular figure was arrived at?
Xa ubuya ke lifini ukhona umuntu owambuza uba le 12,500 ivelaphi ntoni isusa sayo?
Abasebenzani babuzile abathe 12.5 ibi figure for amount be suggested. Bebengafuni 12.5.
The workers I asked when I came back told me that the figure of 12,005 was a figure they suggested, not that that's the amount they wanted.
Yes, but what did they base the suggestion on? They didn't just grab the figure out of the air, did they?
Kodwa ke bathi ibalwe njani bayifike kweli nani le 12,000 kanye ifika nje bavele bayizicingela nje.
Bona babeke i12.5 bebefuna ukuthi xa kuyo negotiate mhlombe ingabona kwenye amount not ingabe 12.5.
Mr. Chair, they suggested the 12.5 expecting that through the negotiations the amount that would be decided on may be any other amount.
Is this what was explained to you?
Yes.
You see, there was a report in one of the newspapers some months ago saying that in an article written by the General Secretary of the Solidarity Trade Union, suggesting that there was a story going around that what happened was one of the workers, I assume a rock drill operator, wanted to buy a motor car. And he went to a financial institution asking if they would give him the finance. And they said, no, you can't get it. And he said, why? And they said, you don't qualify. To qualify, you've got to earn 12,500. So the article went on to say that it is believed that that's where the figure came from, that he went back, that this particular worker went back to his colleagues and said, look here, we've got to get 12,500, otherwise we won't get finance to buy motor cars. Did you hear such a story? Is there any truth in that?
Kwinyanga ke zagqithayo emva kwalento kuthiwa kwakunenantsika i-article umbhalo phaa ephepheni athi awubhalwe Secretary General ye-Solidarity isithi kho umsebenzi owaya kwindawo efuna ukuthenga imoto waya ke funa uncedo lwemali apho ke fanele bamfanelise khona bamncede kwathiwa hayi ukuba ukwazi ukufumana imoto fanele urhole i-12,500 ngoku yena wafumanisa ukuba urhola ngaphantsi wabuyela ke ngoku waya phaa kwabanye abasebenzi wabaxelela loo nto uba ye madoda xa ufuna imoto ungayifumana imoto xa ngabe urhola imali engako wayiva into enjalo
ndiyaqala uyiva
it's the first time I hear of that.
It's a report that appeared in Bild. I'm not saying it's true. Sorry, Mr. Forgive me if I don't interrupt you. You can speak when I finish. I thought we'd gone over that ground before.
Well, you're interrupting me as well, Chairperson. I'm saying that...
I'm busy talking. When I've finished, I'll give you a chance to talk. Two people can't talk at once. It was a report that appeared in the report newspaper. Just being a story which the Solidarity people had heard. All I wanted to know from you, I'm not saying it's correct or anything, I wanted to know from you whether you'd heard that story and whether there's any substance in it, but you've answered me. You say you haven't heard it before. Yes, Mr. Mpofu, you wanted to say?
Yeah, so
kungenzeka uba mhlawumbi ke ibingekho loo nto
I don't want to interrupt the interpretation.
funa nje ukwazi uba wayiva na wena loo nto uthi ayivanga ke kulungile.
No, I was saying, Chairperson, that I don't think it's fair to put to this witness, firstly, all sorts of urban legend stories or outrageous statements made by rival unionists, unless if that is going to be, if that person is going to be called here, and or whether I don't even know what to call it. It's not evidence. It certainly is not evidence, but it's rumors and rumor mongering and union rivalry statements made on that basis.
The cases on how commissions function say that commissioners can use all sorts of material, including reports in newspapers. I put this to the witness in order to ascertain whether there's any substance in it. In the light of what he said, I don't propose to take it any further unless another witness comes and says it's correct. So far as you raise an objection, it's overruled. Let Mr. Bam continue with his cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mtshamba, you said to us on Tuesday that you weren't part of the group of RDOs from Korea who marched to the offices of Mr. Da Costa at the end of June 2012 and again during July 2012.
uthi ke ubungeyongxenye ye-RDO ezayo ofisini ka-Mr. Da Costa phaa ekupheleni kukajuni nasekuqaleni kukajulayi bungeyongxenye yabo. No, I was not.
Can you recall, as a career RDO, whether at any time during June 2012 or July 2012 there was any meeting held of career RDOs or any report back where the figure of 12,500 rand was discussed?
Uyakhumbula ke mhlambi njenge-RDO yaseKeriye ngaloo maxesha ukuba kwake kwaba ne-meeting mhlambi inhlanganiso apho kwathethwa ngemali kwathethwa nangale elinani le-12,500.
zange ndiyive meeting enjalo.
No, I've never heard that being mentioned in any meeting.
And during the period late June 2012 up to the end of July 2012 when you went on leave, was there any meeting called of RDOs, whether just at Korea or all the RDOs, giving a report back on the discussions which were held with Mr. Da Costa?
Phaa kusuka ko-June 2012 kuya ke ku-July ikhona ikhona i-meeting eke yabanjwa mhlawumbe apho kunikwa khona ingxelo ngento eke yathethwa kwi-meeting ayibanjwe ngaphambili no-Mr. Da Costa?
iripoti enjalo ndiyive ngabasebenzi endisebenza nawo emgodini.
I heard about such a report from my colleagues.
What I'm asking is whether you were present at any report back to the RDOs about the discussions with Mr. Da Costa.
Ndibuza uba wena ubukhona xa inikwa loo ngxelo?
Bendingekho.
No, I was not present.
And when you had returned on the 13th of August, between the 13th and the 16th of August, can you recall whether when you were on the copy with other strikers, there was any discussion or reference to the discussions which had been held with Mr. Da Costa?
Xa sowubuyile ke umane udibana nabanye abasebenzi sola nge-13 kuya nge-16 zika-Agasti uke weva ngengxoxo ezithethwayo mhlawumbi zemiphumela yento ebithethwa xa kumane kudityanwa no-Mr. Da Costa?
Ndayiva.
I heard about that, yes.
I'm asking, when you say you heard about it, can you explain to us how you heard about it and from whom?
Weva ntoni, uva kubani?
Ikhona i-friend yami eyi-RDO ohlala next door yami.
I have a friend who's an RDO, is my next door neighbor.
Wandixelela ukuthi Mr. Da Costa uvumile ukuthi uzabanika i-allowance ye-750.
He told me that Mr. Da Costa agreed to give them 750 allowance. That's how I heard about it.
To the best of your knowledge, you don't know of any report back to those who went on strike on the 9th of August about the discussions which were held between RDO representatives and Mr. Da Costa from the end of June to July 2012.
Ngokwazi kwakho ke awazi ngangxelo kwaba eyifunyenwe ngaba abantu baye bayothetha naye uMr. Da Costa kuyo yonke laqela labantu baye baye strikeini baqala istrike nge-9 zika-August.
Ithi mna ndive nje nge-750 allowance.
I only heard about the allowance of 750 rand.
But you don't know of any report back which stated that when RDO representatives approached Mr. Da Costa at the end of June 2012 and during July 2012, he did discuss with them the very question of the demand on the table for 12,500 rand.
Awivanga ke ingxelo yokuba ke uMr. Da Costa uye wathetha nabasebenzi phaa kusukela nge-12 okanye phaa ngoJune ukuya kuJuly ngayo le mali ye-12,500.
Akhange ndive.
Bayabekwa etafuleni le nto yale mali.
Akhange ndive nge-12,500.
No, I did not hear about the 12,500 rand.
And did they hear about the discussions with Mr. Da Costa about the 12,500 rand and the fact that Mr. Da Costa was willing to talk to RDO representatives in that period on that very demand?
Uvile ke ngayo ingxoxo zale 12,500 nokuba uMr. Da Costa uzawuthetha uzimisela ukuthetha nabo aba bantu ngale demand yabo.
Ithi mna ndive nje ngale-allowance ye-750 andivanga 12.5.
I'm saying, Mr. Cha, only heard about the allowance of 750 rand. I did not hear about the 12,005.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mtshamba, I just want to go on to a different topic now. When you had returned from leave on the 13th of August, were you aware that on the 11th of August, 2 people from amongst the strikers had been injured by gunshot wounds? That on the 12th of August, 2 Lonmin security officers had been murdered? That on the same day there was a non-striker who was killed at the career shaft, K4
Chairperson,
shaft?
I want to object. Are we the only people who are disallowed from using the word murder? Because SABC has been allowed to use it and now Lonmin is being allowed to use it.
I didn't actually hear, forgive me, I didn't actually hear what Mr. Bam said because he dropped his
Well,
voice.
SABC used it in Exhibit L, as I pointed out, and now it's being used.
The word killed. I don't want to offend anybody's sensibilities.
No, well, the problem, no, let's get this clear once and for all. I've ruled over and over again, and I shall do so until the end of the commission if I have to, that it's not appropriate to put as an established fact something which is controversial. What is controversial at the moment is whether the police murdered the people who died on the 16th, and for that matter, the 3 persons who died on the 13th, whether they murdered them. Because the police have put up a defense of self-defense. Whether that defense will be upheld at the end of the day we do not know at this stage. But at the moment it's controversial. And so so the principle that I've expounded applies. I won't allow anyone to put as an established fact something which is the subject of controversy before this commission. So so Mr. Mpofu is quite right. So far as you use the word murder in respect of matters which are controversial, then you were wise to withdraw the word and substitute a neutral word.
I had used it in the context of the 2 security guards who were killed, but I'm not going to take it further. I take the point. I'm going to work on that basis. Were you aware of the fact that in the days prior to you coming back, there had been people who were killed in the course of the strike?
Ubunolwazi ke lokuba kwezi insuku phambi koba wena ubuye bese kunabantu abaye babulawa kuso esi strike okanye ngenxa yesi strike.
Ndava ezindabeni.
I heard that on the news.
You weren't told that by anybody from amongst the strikers or people who were leading the strike?
Khange uxelelwe mhlambe ngabantu bebekhona pha istrike okanye inkokheli ze strike ngokufa kwabo bantu. No.
I just want to ask you one more question personally, Mr. Mtshamba. You say when you came back, people were out on strike already and you joined the strike.
Uthi ke xa ubuye elifini abantu besiqalile istrike nawe wasijoin.
Ndifikele mna strikes on.
Yes.
Ngafuneka ndiyoreport ndaxelwa ukuthi kuvaliwe ezimine.
When I arrived, the strike was on, and when I had to go and report, I was told that the mines are closed.
What would your attitude at the time have been to people who did not wish to participate in the strike and wanted to go to work instead?
Ubuzayithatha njani ke into yabantu mhlambe bebengafuni bona usingenela esi strike befuna ukusebenza? Uzamkela njani into njani?
Akho nto bendizayenza.
There was nothing I could have done about that.
Mr. Chairman, will you give me a moment, please? Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next to cross-examine Mr. Oweke? Is that
Chair,
it?
there are no further
No, I thought not.
requests which we have. It's just
So,
re-examination.
Mr. Mpofu?
Thank you, Chairperson. Before the re-examination starts, Chairperson, there's a matter which might need some debate. It's an objection that my learned colleague, Mr. Smenya, has indicated to me he would raise over the weekend. Just to situate the issue, Chairperson, what has happened is that as one of the matters that has arisen in the various cross-examinations, you will recall that there was the issue of the nature of injuries, people being shot on the arms and chest and so on. Effectively, the issue was that there were 2 approaches that were taken. One by Mr. Chaskalson, the other one by Mr. Smenya himself. Mr. Chaskalson's cross-examination, if you remember, Chair, was effectively that in relation to the victims who died, some of the injuries that the witness had identified were consistent to a particular extent, or they were not consistent to another particular extent. And if you remember, Commissioner Hemraj very correctly pointed out or asked a question to Mr. Chaskalson as to whether the witness had ever suggested that the shots that he was referring to were in respect of people who had died. And the witness duly said, no, he never said that. So they might have died, they might not have died. And I think, learning from that experience, Mr. Smenya correctly took a different approach to the matter, which was that effectively, had there been people with such injuries, then they would, if they were arrested and injured, they would have been my clients, and therefore we would have been aware of those injuries, which was a legitimate line of cross-examination. Now, based on those 2 cross-examinations, Chairperson, we then produced 2 sets, or rather 3 sets of affidavits from 3 different persons, whose injuries match the injuries that the two cross-examiners had referred to. And incidentally, all of them had survived, hence we took affidavits from them. Which is not to say that other people who died might not have had similar injuries. And therefore, as we should, Chairperson, we distributed those affidavits on Friday in an unsigned form. We now are in possession of the one. Over the weekend, we then ensured that they take them to the Marikana police station for a commission of oaths. And the idea, Chairperson, if I may anticipate the objection, is that those statements really are being tendered merely for the purpose of saying those were the injuries that were sustained by the people, rather than anything else, really, just to deal with that point. And therefore, it might not, strictly speaking, be necessary to call those witnesses just to say, I was shot in the arm, unless if there's a doubt about that. And just as a precaution, I've got all the three people here so that they can even show their injuries to the commission. And Mr. Badlander indicated to me by email on Saturday, I think, that the full medical statements of the persons would be required. What we had done, just as shorthand, was simply to put a page or two from the medical reports that shows that the person was admitted with these injuries. But so we've also complied with the request to finish the full statements. And therefore, as I say, I'm sure Mr. Semenya will have something to say, to which I will respond. But I just thought it's important to raise that issue up front before my re-examination starts, Chairperson.
Before Mr. Semenya replies, if we get clarity on what exactly it is that you want to do. We've just been presented with a batch of documents. I've quickly read the affidavits through. And as far as I can see, there are medical reports attached. Now, there are two issues that would be relevant. Firstly, were there strikers who were arrested at Copy 3 who had injuries in the arm and the hand? The answer would appear to be that these three deponents whose affidavits we put before us were so injured, and the medical reports appear to support that. The only remaining question, therefore, is were they at Copy 3, and more particularly, were they in the vicinity of the witness at the time they were injured and so on. They say that in their affidavits, some with more precision than others. So the question really is, and do I understand you to be saying that you simply want to put these documents before us as exhibits to establish those two things? One, these were injured and arrested persons who were injured in the hand or the arm, and two, they were arrested in the vicinity of the place where Mr. Mtshamba was. That's all you want to do? Am I right?
Yes, Chairperson, and the fact that they too saw people who were surrendering being shot in front of them. Yeah.
Mr. Semenya, what is your attitude to the...
Just to clarify a point that might be important, because Mr. Semenya also raised it again correctly, that what he was talking about were people who were arrested and injured, as you have also framed the question. As it happens, all the three persons were not arrested, and that's exactly the point, one of the points we wanted to raise. You remember I had said last week that the mere fact that someone was injured didn't necessarily mean that they were also arrested, and this vindicates that position. Some might have been. Now, what happened in this particular case, Chairperson, I don't know if that's captured in the affidavits, but I can maybe just say from the bar that from my consultations with them, what seems to have happened is that everyone was congregated around that, let's call it the arresting area, where people were made to face down and so on. And then the police said, I think that came specifically from Mr. Nova. The police then said, those who are injured but are able to walk, as it were, must go to the ambulances. And then the ones who were critical were airlifted and so on. So there were different categories, and the rest were arrested.
Mr. Bettini Bennett Nova,
Yes.
he doesn't say, as far, unless I read it in a hurry because I only got the document this morning. He doesn't say in terms he was arrested, but I see he did make an IPID statement.
That's correct.
Do we know whether he was arrested?
No, he was not specifically. What happened, Chairperson, again, and one lens of how these things worked as you go along. What seems to have happened is that some of the people who were in hospital were visited by IPID, even though they were not.
You know,
Yeah.
he says that in his statement. That
Yes.
He
Specifically, the others were not.
his
But
IPID statement was taken while he was not.
that's correct. Thank you,
All right,
Chairperson.
your
I just
point
wanted
is
to clarify.
These people weren't arrested, but they were
Yes.
injured and they were on the spot at the time.
They were on the spot. Thank you, Chairperson.
All right. Mr. Semenya, are you in a position to deal with Mr. Mpofu's submission? But before you do that, perhaps the question I should have asked him first. Do we know whether, perhaps this, I'd be grateful this isn't, what I'm now asking would not be interpreted. Do we know whether the present witness is able to identify any of these three persons as having been on the copy near him at the relevant time?
No, Chairperson, and the vice versa also applies. I've obviously not asked the witness because he's under cross-examination, but I asked them if they remembered him, and nobody could remember specific people here.
What occurs to me is it necessary, or indeed even appropriate, to put this to him in re-examination? I can understand this, the force of this evidential material if it's accepted. I understand that. But if he doesn't know these people and he can't say they were there, then he, in fact, can add nothing to it in re-examination. But you can, once he's finished his evidence, just putting a prima facie view to you, you can, once he's finished his evidence, seek to put this material before us. And if it goes in, it would obviously corroborate the evidence he's given. But if he can't specifically, he's already said people near him were shot and so on. He can't add to it because he doesn't know these people, you tell me. So is it necessary for you at this stage to put the statement in? You are going to apply, and you've given me notice now, you're going to apply. And we may have some debate about it. But so if you just bear with me a moment, my colleagues want to help me. Yes.
Mr. Mpofu, isn't there another point, Mr. Mpofu, isn't there another point that the witness description of the number of people that were shot in front of him is restricted to 2 or 3 in his evidence, and now you have a multiple number of people being shot in front of him? You might want to consider that point.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's deal with that point first. The witness has never confined the number of people shot to him, in front of him, to any number.
He did. He specifically said, in answer to a question I asked him, so it was 3 people that were shot in front of you, and he said yes.
That no one else was shot in that copy?
No, it was in the context of the injuries that he was describing and the sequence in which particular people that were shot in front of him were
yes,
shot.
but that's irrelevant with respect. The issue here that we want to establish is that some people who were in the area where he was sustained the injuries that he described, which is the point, that is the exact point. That point is the exact point that Mr. Semenya was foreshadowing when he said to the witness, if there were people like that, then Mr. Mpofu would know about them. Because what he was saying is...
I understand you now addressing that point, that
yeah.
you had so many clients to consult with and so many
Sure.
factual matters to traverse that you didn't have a chance to do it at the time. Whether you should have done it or not is neither here nor there. You've now done it, and you want to put the fruits of that investigation before us.
Yes, Chairperson, because I'm not a prophet. I didn't know. The re-examination is only because it arose from the cross-examination. Yeah.
No, the question that I put to you, haven't answered yet, and that is, there are 2 questions. One is whether this material should go before us. The other question is it necessary to do it, or appropriate even, while
Yes.
this witness being re-examined, because there's nothing he can add himself. This material may well corroborate him if it goes in, but that's another matter. So how do you answer that point?
Yes. No, Chairperson, again, the answer is exactly in what you have just said. If the only value of putting this to this witness is firstly, A, because it was in his cross-examination that it was raised. Two, the very point that you are making, Chairperson, had I done this beforehand, then simply I would have just put it to him now in re-examination and say, well, go to the statement of Mr. So-and-so, and he says he was shot in the arm. The point of the matter is that that did not happen. So the mere fact that it did not happen because I did not anticipate the cross-examination cannot disentitle me to put a point that I would otherwise have been entitled to put had those statements been in existence before the cross-examination. That's really, that's the only point of debate here, is whether the statements, merely because they've only been secured now, suddenly become irrelevant to the cross-examination.
I'm not even sure whether you could have put it in chief. Let me remind you of something. You may remember that Mr. Matabedi wanted to put some statements in when he was leading Mr. X. And I said to him, you can't do that. Mr. X can't add anything to them. Whether the statements go in is a different question, which we'll deal with when we have to. But it's not appropriate to put to a witness, here's a statement of a witness who appears to corroborate you. Do you agree? Witness says, yes, he corroborates you. I wouldn't allow Mr. Matabedi to do that.
Yeah.
And the impression I got was that you went along with me on that one.
Yes, well, it was my point.
If you had a chance to give a concurring judgment, you would have done so.
Yeah.
But does the same point not apply here?
Sure. No, Chairperson, I think we misunderstand each other. That objection was raised by me to Mr. Matabedi, so I'm the last one to say that it was wrongly made. I'm not talking about raising the thing in chief. I'm saying I would have raised it in re-examination, sorry. And I would have raised it in re-examination because it was raised in cross-examination. What I'm saying is that if those statements were here, and let's say they were part of the material, nobody would have stopped me in re-examination to say, this is what Mr. Chaskalson said, this is what Mr. Semenya said, go to that exhibit. Because the issues arose from cross-examination. The only issue that's making us to have this debate is the mere fact that those statements were not in existence by the time
But you can get that, if these documents go in, then you can get that before the commission.
I would be using them now.
Yeah. Anyway, let's hear what Mr. Semenya says. Mr. Semenya?
Chair, if the purpose of these statements is merely to inform the Commission what injuries the various individuals have sustained, there's no difficulty with that. We can deal with it separately. It is certainly not a matter for re-examination.
Good, but to be fair to Mr. Mpofu, there are 2 points he's trying to establish. The first is that these strikers were on the copy and they received injuries of the kind they've deposed to. And secondly, they may well have been, perhaps we put precisely, in close vicinity to the area where this witness was. Well, they can't say that they don't say they saw him there, and he apparently doesn't say he saw them either. But those are the 2 points which Mr. Mpofu seeks to establish.
Secondly, if the point of these statements is intended to convey that they sustained the injuries they did in copy 3, there's no difficulty with that. We can deal with it differently. Those 2 are not subject matter for introducing this type of evidence in re-examination. Now, Mr. Mpofu tells us the only reason he is doing it is because this matter arose in cross-examination, and he points to the cross-examination that I did. That also doesn't help him, Chair. You'd recall that according to the witness, the surrendering individual who sustained the injuries he described is an injury that was sustained by the victim on his right arm. These statements don't speak to that. They speak about injuries to the left arm. That's the first thing. So I don't see how that can arise out of the cross-examination that I did. Further, if we look at this, Mr. Mpofu tells us
he wants to use this statement to corroborate that there were people who were shot at whilst surrendering. Now, that is not how you introduce evidence at all. Untested evidence, unless he tells us they are going in provisionally because he's going to call those witnesses, then I can understand. Otherwise, we may as well just produce 600 statements of SAPS members who say the contrary and give them to the commission for consideration as evidence. That's not how it works.
Well,
I have.
yeah. Well, Chairperson, firstly, well, SABC has produced 600 statements from people, including the IPID statements. But the point is not what Mr. Semenya says is the point. On the issue of whether the people will testify or not, I think we'll be guided by practical considerations. That is why, Chairperson, you'll notice that I went out of my way to ensure that these people don't just give the usual witness statements, but they give sworn affidavits. And it's in the discretion of the Commission to accept that evidence, and obviously with the obvious precautions. But each of the persons, in the last paragraph of each paragraph, says, and I'm reading now Mr. Nova's one, paragraph 18, just as an example. I'm available to testify before the Commission or to be interviewed by the evidence leaders. That's what he says. So, barring the practical considerations of time and so on, I would be glad to comply with Mr. Semenya's request and just call the people to say, I have an injury in such and such a place. I saw people being surrendering, being killed or injured or whatever, and I was in copy 3. But I think it would be, to do that, Chairperson, for that limited purpose, for the limited purpose that we've all agreed the statements are being tendered for, would just be a waste of time, with respect. And I would therefore urge that the Commission uses its discretion to accept the affidavits on that limited basis, that they only establish those objective facts. If the people, they're here, all three of them, if one of the evidence leaders have to go and look at the injuries, whether they match the medical certificates, that can also be done. I think that would be the most practical. That's why I said they must take a day off from work and be here today, so that it can be dealt with on that basis.
Chair,
Sorry.
it would be the most prejudicial admission of adverse evidence against SABC that we have untested account of witnesses who say they were shot whilst surrendering. I mean, that's the most damning evidence against us that can be
overlook one factor, and that is what this witness said while being cross-examined by Mr. Shaskus was he can't say whether the persons who shot while and effectively caused the injuries knew that they were firing at people who were surrendering, whether they could see them. And you will remember the evidence is quite a lot of shots were fired from some distance away by members of the canine section until Colonel Gaffley from the SDF told them to stop firing. And so my understanding of this witness's evidence is he simply says people were surrendering, or trying to surrender, and while they were surrendered, they were shot. He cannot, in the light of concession he made to Mr. Shaskus, say that the persons who shot them deliberately, knowing that they were surrendering. And we know the evidence is a lot of shots were fired from some distance away, effectively shot into the bush by canine people who were, in fact, further back than the SDF people were. So I don't know that I'm just expressing points to you. But I'm not sure the admission of these statements would establish that people were shot while being surrendered, and when in circumstances where the person who shot deliberately fired at people while they were surrendering.
Well,
I understand the latter point to be the point that you're complaining about, isn't that? Is that not so?
Chair,
It's common cause, surely, that a lot of shots were fired into the bush, inter alia by the K9 people.
We say so in our own opening statement. That's not the point I'm complaining about. These statements are statements of witnesses that say, I was hit, I remember having next to me, and we were all surrounding, and we were hit. They are making direct statements of being shot at whilst they were surrounded by the police. It's a completely different matter that they got injured during the shooting.
Take them one by one. But actually, I must say, I'm minded to rule. Have you finished, Mr. Mpofu?
Yes, Chairperson.
No, finish off the argument. I know you haven't re-examined it.
No, Chairperson. No, I just wanted, just in fairness to Mr. Semenya, the one of the witnesses, I'm just checking if it's in the affidavit. No, it's not. Mr. Nova. No, it's not in the statement, Chairperson, but in fairness to Mr. Semenya, Mr. Nova, if he were to testify, he does say that one of the shots fired at him, the third one on the chest, was done by someone standing within 4 or 5 meters in front of him. So I think and therefore he suggests that it was being done cold-bloodedly and deliberately.
Sorry, Mr. Mpofu, I just want to check. In the light of what you've told us, namely that these people didn't really see the witness, and the likelihood is that the witness also didn't see them.
No, I didn't say that, Chair.
I'm saying the likelihood. I'm not saying you didn't
okay.
see them.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I'm saying the likelihood is that he didn't see them. So what value can you really have if you were to put it in re-examination? I can understand you wanting to have this evidence put before the commission. That's fair. But is it really going to help you putting it to the witness in re-examination? Because he's not going to say, yes, I saw Mr. Nova.
No. No. Thank you. No, that's a fair question, Commissioner Tobot. Again, let me just clarify. This is not tendered for that purpose at all. The witness has said that he was part of a group of 30 to 50 people. That is a fact. The fact that he can't say this one was Mr. Smith, this one was Mr. this and that is neither here nor there. These people also say when these things happened, they were in a group of people who were being shot, surrendering, doing all sorts of things. I think one of them even says people were piling on top of each other. The other one says somebody's blood came to his clothing. So what is clear is that on both sides of the divide, these people were operating in a group. They don't then have to identify each person by name and surname. The mere fact is that it happened while they were in a group, and A. B, that it happened in an area where it would have been visible to him and others who were in that square, so to speak, if one looks at the pictures that Mr. Chaskalson has produced. That is all. It's not, so the identities, whether this one saw the one next to him is irrelevant with respect, as long as he knows that there were people, there were human beings who were there, who were shot at that time.
No, the crux of my question is not based on the identity of the people. It's based on the re-examination. Re-examination being to clarify certain things which are not clear, which arose out of cross-examination. Now, you have these people independently saying that we were shot while we were surrendering. That's fair. Here it's already said so. So what value is it going to add in introducing the evidence through him? You can simply do it. You can do your re-examination and cross-examination, clarify things, and thereafter you are free to hand in this or call or whatever.
Yes, thank you. I understand that. The point is simply that the man has been cross-examined on the basis that what he's saying cannot be true, because had there been such people in existence, they would have been known by me. which is a fair point that was raised by Mr. Semenya. All I'm doing now is to say the mere fact that those statements were not raised at that particular point, as the chairperson said, might be because of the practicality that I probably didn't speak to all the 300 people or all the ones who were not arrested and so on and so on. But those people are here. The commission must be seeking to establish the truth. If the truth can be established by these people coming now and saying, I was injured in the arm, the commission can't turn around and turn a blind eye to it, because the commission must want to understand exactly what happened. And this issue arose in the cross-examination.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're not really answering the point that my
Well,
colleague, advocate, the court,
I've tried twice.
No, you haven't. You haven't answered. The point is, there are 2 points. The one is, do you put it in as part of the re-examination of the witness? The second question is, even if you can't do that, does that preclude you from doing it later? Now, what my colleague has put to you, he hasn't got a problem with the second question. He accepts that in the circumstances, which presumably can be explored in depth later, but it may well be you can put these statements in, and these statements would then nullify the effect of the criticism which is addressed in relation to the way you led the evidence in chief. That's the second.
No, yes.
The first one, the only point he put to you was, is it appropriate to do in re-examination? Do you have to do re-examination? I was thinking of an example. Assuming you have a witness who gives evidence about an event, and the witness says it was raining, and he's vigorously cross-examined by a cross-examiner who says it wasn't raining, and a fair amount of damage is done to his evidence about why he says it was raining. The side who are call the witness have a statement of someone who was on the scene who says it was raining. That's all he says, but he says it was raining. That's enough. You don't put that in re-examination witness. You were cross-examined on the subject of raining, whether it was raining or not. Here we've got a statement by Mr. Jones, who will say it was raining. What do you say about that? The witness will say, well, that's nice. Corroborates what I said. You don't do that. You simply call Mr. Jones, or you put his evidence in some other way, and you then, in that way, nullify the effect of the cross-examination.
No,
that's the point he put to you.
No.
What's your answer to that?
Yes, Chairperson, I think, I don't know, I'm going to try for the third time. Once a point has been raised in cross-examination by a cross-examiner, that answers the question. It entitles you to clarify it in re-examination. That's trite. I don't think anyone in this room is going to debate against that.
Clarify it by evidence that you elicit from the witness who's giving evidence during the re-examination.
Yes, of course.
You don't clarify it by putting something to him that he doesn't know anything about. You may well be entitled to put that separately, independently, but that's a different matter.
It's not something he doesn't know about. He's testified about people being shot surrendering. He has testified about people being shot in the arm. He has testified about people being shot in the stomach. How can he not know anything about it? We all know it from him. We don't know it from the air.
But he doesn't know about the person who has been shot on the other side.
But that's the point I answered earlier. That's irrelevant. The identity of the person is irrelevant. The point is that he knows about...
The statement says a different thing from what he says as to the location of the bullet when it was shot at. So that's why we say, is it really necessary to put it in re-examination? You can understand. We want to hear this evidence. Fine. That is true. We want it. But then it's not necessary to put to this witness.
Okay.
The way
no, thank you, Commissioner. My fourth and last attempt. If the witness, let's use the chairperson's example. If the witness says it was raining and is cross-examined vigorously that it was not raining, how can it not be competent in the re-examination to say, here's the weatherman's report on that day, and a picture of people holding umbrellas, and other picture of other people in a cricket match where it was pouring, and so on. How on earth can that be, if it was raised in the cross-examination as a point of criticism to that witness? You can't say, well, no, leave it now, and then much later you can call the weatherman to, honestly, that if litigation was run along in those
But the point here, this witness is contradicting him insofar as the landing of the bullet. He says I was shot on the left arm. He says he was shot on the right hand arm side.
Well, fine, then exclude that one. If
the point
that's a
is,
problem.
you're not really clarifying. Instead, you are actually contradicting him.
No, Chairperson, the point is not the left arm or the right arm or the middle arm. The point is that these people have injuries which are consistent with his evidence. We can't really, now, for someone who has been shot with bullets flying everywhere, want to say, well, he even said it was the hand or the arm, even in his statement. So he was contradicting himself in that narrow sense. But surely we all know that a person who was laboring under those, if it was a normal situation, we would say, well, you can't say the arm or the hand because you must choose which one. But we all know that the man was under a hail of bullets. Similarly, if we are now going to say, was it the right or the left? And
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moore. In my opinion, the evidence that Mr. Mpofu proposes to elicit from this witness is evidence to which he can add no value, he cannot deal with, he knows nothing about it himself. I don't think evidence can appropriately be elicited in re-examination. And Mr. Mpofu says that's how it works in litigation. He dealt with the example I gave about witnesses cross-examined about whether it was raining, and his counsel wishes to produce to him in re-examination a statement he, in fact, knows nothing about, which confirms that it was raining. That's not allowed, in my opinion. I've never encountered it in litigation ever, and I disallow the production of this evidence at this stage as part of the re-examination. But I think there's merit in what Mr. Mpofu has suggested, and that is that the evidence leaders should be asked to interview these three deponents, and it may well be that after that has happened, this material will be able to be put before the Commission, and if it is put before the Commission, that will go very far to nullify the criticism that was directed against the manner in which the evidence was led in chief, where this evidence was not led. That's my ruling on the point.
Isigqibo senziwa ngokuba ezi statement azinawufakwa ngoku kodwa uvumelana nomhlekazi uMpofu umgcini sihlalo kokuba ekambeni kwexesha zingafakwa ngoba kukho apho zingqinelana nawe khona.
I want to say it may well be that the material, or some of it, which Mr. Mpofu wishes to put before us, may well eventually be able to be put before us by way of agreement, particularly after the evidence leaders have interviewed the three gentlemen who have deposed to the affidavits, which Mr.
Ingangena ke ezi statement ngaphandle kokuthi zikhanyelwe emva kokuba i-evidence leaders siziye zabanako ukuthi sizijonge sithethe naba bantu benze ezo statement.
May now commence your re-examination, Mr. Mpofu.
Thank you, Chairperson. In light of that ruling, it might be appropriate, Mr. Mtshamba, to start with soliciting your comment about what I will call, armchair approach that we might take here, in these air-conditioned rooms, about what you went through.
Uyibheka ngolo hlobo ke Mhlekazi Mpofu kokuba uza kubuza nje imibuzo sikwazi ukuyibona ngendlela njengendlela kule meko wawukuyo ngelo xesha hayi njengoba sihleli apha kumnqandi.
As Mr. Chaskalson, I think very correctly and sensitively put it, that it is unimaginable the kind of thing you went through. Maybe for us, you'll forgive us to appreciate sitting in the air-conditioned conditions.
Ngendlela evakalayo Mhlekazi uShakalsena kokuba imeko wawuzifana kuyo ngelo xesha yayimaqongo ngendlela emangalisayo thina esihleli apha singakwazi ukuba siyikhole.
I think somebody even asked you at some stage how many shots were shot from the helicopter. And again, you'll forgive us that because of our training, we go for those kinds of details, maybe not appreciating the situation that the person is going through.
Ukhona oye wabuza kokuba kwadujula imbumbulo ezingaka ezivela kwi-helicopter. Lowo ngumbuzo ke obuzwa ngathi njengama amagqwetha abantu abangazange babe kwimeko ezinjengezo.
And what I really want to ask you to clarify to the Commission is in your own words, the exact situation that you were under. You've described about putting your head down, bullets flying onto rocks and noises and all that. Can you just maybe make us appreciate what a person in that situation, what they observe and how you were feeling at the time?
Uthi umhlakazo uthanda ukuba ukusichazele ke thina njengabantu bebangekho kule nto ongayibona siva ngawe okokuba imeko yayimaqongo lohlobo uyasixela apha kokuba kukho amaxesha apho nanichanisa khona into kophansi liphakame nishone phezulu kwakunjani mhlekapha imeko yayilapho?
Into yokuqala ndandothuke kakhulu kwelo langa.
First of all, Chairperson, I was very scared on the day.
Ndandiqala uva izibhamu zikhalana.
It was my first time to hear so many gunshots.
Ndandicinga uba ndizawufa kwelo langa.
I was thinking, this is my last day, I'm going to die today.
Ngoba sendibalekela uba ndisindise impilo yam.
The running away was actually an endeavor to save my life.
Ngoba zange ndike ndibona abantu bedutyulwa kabuhlungu ngelo hlobo bendibona ngakhona.
Because I had never experienced before, Chairperson, people being shot in such a hurting manner.
Ezinye izinto andisakwazi nozithetha endizibona ngelo langa.
I can't remember everything that I saw on that day and talk about it. That is all.
Right. Again, in view of what has just transpired, but I think you've already answered this question, but if you forgive me, do you know yourself whether the people that you saw being shot, which you have described, died or survived?
Wena ngokwakho wabona kudutshulwa abantu lapho unolwazi wena ngokwakho kuba abo bantu basweleka ikanene abanye bakhona basinda.
Abantu mthethe ngabantu andicela andiphinde lo mbuzo.
If you could just repeat the question slowly, sir.
Yes. Of the people whose shots you have described to the commission, who were shot in the various places that you have described, do you know whether they died at the scene or later, or whether they survived the shootings?
Dutshulwa abantu waze wachazwa ukuba umnye udutshule endaweni ethize omunye udutshule endaweni ethile. Ngokubuzwa kokuba lwakho ulwazi onalo wena abo bantu ababona bedutshulwa apho basweleka apho na ikanene abanye babo abaswelekana.
Ngeli xesha amapolisa bethi masiphakamise idlanza silale phansi. Kunabantu abashekayo phaa kulaa ndawo. Andazi noba bebeswelekile okanye uqhubeka.
Chairperson, at the time that the police instructed us to raise our hand, lie on the ground, move forward, there are people that remained behind there. Now, I wouldn't know whether they were dead or whether they were still alive.
Thank you. And were you the only person who was shot while you were surrendering, or were there other people? And if so, do you know how many?
Ngeli xesha niphakama ninikezela kwadutshulwa abantu ngomnye wabo bantu badutshulwa ngokwazi kwakho khona abanye abadutshulwa besinikezela nabo ikanene nguwe wedwa.
Abanye abantu badutshulwe kwindawo bebekuzo.
So other people were shot at different places where they were.
And were you able to observe whether they were also shot while they were surrendering or not?
Ngokubona kwakho xa ubajongile badutshulwe nabo bephakamisile bexhomile.
Abanye badutshulwe bebaleka.
Some were shot whilst running away.
Yes.
Abanye ngaba ndithetha ukuthi badutshulwe bephakamise idlanza.
Some, those that I've mentioned, who were shot with their hands raised.
Right. And you've, okay. You were also accused of falsifying your evidence in respect of the shots that you say came from the helicopter. Do you know whether or not the policemen in the helicopters were shooting?
Kwathiwa apha uyaxoka xa usithi kwakukho iimbumbulu ezazivela phezulu kwinqwelontaka. Ngokwazi kwakho la mapolisa abephaya kwinqwelontaka uyazi ukuba abedubula nawo kanena wazi.
Mna ndive iimbumbulu zikhala kusuka kwi-direction zonke.
Chairperson, I had bullets being fired from all directions.
So ndikholelwa ukuthi nawe bedubula ngoba
I
behamba phezu kwethu.
believed that they were also shooting because they were hovering over us.
Thank you. You've also been asked by Mr. Bam about the issue of the 12,500 rand, and you said that it was a starting point. Let's call it that. What can you explain what you meant by that?
Xa ubuza umhlekazi uBam ekubuza ngale 12,500. Uye wathi wena kulapho babe imfuno zabo babezibeke khona beqala apho. Khawusichaze ukuba uthetha ntoni ngale nto kuba kuqalwa apho bese kwenziwa ntoni.
Ndimcacisela uMr. Bam ndithe
When I explained to Mr. Bamse, I was saying
i-12.5 ibiyifigure ebebekiwe.
the 12.5 was the figure that was set
Ukuthi mhlombe nxa kuthethiswana kuzawufika bazawufika kule bafika kuyo.
that during the negotiations, a certain amount would then be arrived at, not necessarily
Bokungatshiwa ukuthi izawuba yi-12.5.
not necessarily the 12.5 that was demanded.
Ibiyimali esugestiweyo.
This was the amount suggested.
Thank you. Now,
Jose?
could we go to day 205, page 25294? Line 14. To 5294, that's not the one.
Line
14.
Pagulenteto, Colonel Vermaak.
Yeah. There, Ms. Pillay was cross-examining Colonel Vermaak. So now, in this commission, we've seen
she was leading his evidence, actually. She didn't cross-examine him.
Yes.
Never mind. We won't go there now.
Yes, we won't. That's correct, yes. It was a peculiar circumstance, yeah. She says, now in this commission, we've seen a number of photographs of the oryx flying quite low. Was that your experience of what transpired that day? And he says, yes.
Wayebuzwa apha uKolonel Vermaak ebuzwa mama uPile embuzo kokuba ngalo mini sive apha kucommission sibone nemfanekiso emininzi yale Elix helicopter eyayibhabha apha eduzane nabantu. Wayibona nawe ngolo hlobo le nto yenzeka. Wathi uKolonel Vermaak ewe.
Now, you can you can accept that the Oryx is the helicopter that Mr. Chaskalson showed to you with the NIU members, I think, hanging their feet outside of it.
Helicopter ekuthiwa i-Oryx ile yavezwa apha kumfanekiso kukho amapolisa amabili elengise izinyawo phaya ngasocangweni.
And you said you saw that particular helicopter. Would you confirm, would you agree with Colonel Vermaak that it was flying quite low? That particular one that Mr. Chaskalson showed you was flying quite low?
Uyavumelana no-Colonel Vermaak apho kokuba le nqolotaka yayibhabhela apha eduzane nabantu kungasi kule ndawo eqheleke kuyo. I agree, it is so.
And there's also evidence that a Sergeant Fenter threw a stun grenade, I don't know if it was one or more, from one of the police helicopters. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you two questions. Firstly, do you know the difference between a stun grenade and any other shot? And if you do, did you see any of that happening?
Mandibuze lo mbuzo kanje kukho le nto ekuthiwa yi-stun grenade uyasazi ngokuba kwenza umahluko phakathi kwe-stun grenade nezinye zezinto ezidubulayo nokuthi I don't know the difference between stun grenade and other explosives.
Okay.
My recollection is it wasn't over Kopi 3 where the stun grenades were thrown. It was somewhere over the veldt.
Yes.
Presumably over people who were fleeing or something, but to the west, as I understand.
That's true,
But in any event, I think the witness has very fairly said he can't be sure it was from the helicopter.
Yes.
There were shots from all over the show. Helicopter was flying low, which you've established. So one can quite readily understand how he could have come under the impression, even if it was an erroneous one, that there were shots fired from the helicopter. I think if I may say so, you've made that point.
Yes.
You might want to move on.
Yes, Chairperson. No, I accept that the episode was happening somewhere else. I was simply saying, if he had seen that, then obviously it would have played in his mind that it was continuing. But I won't take it further than that, Chairperson. There was also evidence about, or rather, you were cross-examined about the fact that you might have found what protester number 6 was saying funny or amusing. As far as you remember, were you the only person who found what he was saying amusing?
Uye wabuzwa apho kokuba kukho lo mqhankqalazi kwakuthiwa ngunumber 6 lo othi wayethetha lapha ukuthi hayi le nto abeyithetha nje wayengumuntu ovamisa nje ukwenza into ehlekisayo. Ngoku kwaba nguwe wedwa yini phakathi kwabo bonke aba bantu abayibona le nto njengeyinhlekisa?
bonke abantu nakawujonga kula video uyava nabantu ngabahleka abaninzi andim ndedwa ndibona umuntu.
Not the only person, Chairperson. If one looks at the video and listens, a number of people are laughing at what he's saying there.
And as far as you remember, there must have been about 9 or 10 other people who spoke in that period. Was there any laughter in relation to any other of the 9 or so people?
Uthi xa ukhumbula ke baba baninzi abantu abathetha apho bade bafika phaya go-9 kanje. Ngaphandle kwalo mfo lo kwintetho yababanye kwakukho abantu babehleka?
Hayi.
Nobody laughed.
And you were also cross-examined about the statement made by Mr. Noki about 2 bulls and 1 crawl. As far as you observed, what happened if, and you were also, I think it was pointed out to you by the chair that in that metaphor, the 2 bulls would have been the police and the strikers. Now, in your experience, what happened to those two bulls once the barbed wire was pulled?
Ngoku ke uthi umhlekazi uMpofu uyabuza ngalento eyathethwa ngumhlekazi uNoki okokuba inkunzi ezimbini azikwazi ukuba zidlale ebuhlanti obodwa. Uthi kumhlekazi uMpofu wabuza umgcini isihlalo wathi masithi ke namba abaqaqalazi enye inkunzi nanka amapolisa enye inkunzi. Ngoku lenye inkunzi seyondlala ucingo oluhlabayo phaya kwasekwenzeka ntoni ke ngalenye inkunzi?
Kubonakala ukuthi
What became clear
inkunzi bengamapolisa pha.
that the bull, the main bull was the police there
Ngoba ngaba bakwazile ukuthi mababulala abantu.
because they were the people who ended up killing the people.
Ezinye inkunzi ezithina ziyezabaleka.
The other bulls, that is us, ran away.
Thank you. Lastly, you described your experiences, and as I've already said, Mr. Chaskasen described them as traumatic correctly. Now, what we know is that you and about 250 or more others were then taken to various police stations, and the experiences that you have described.
Usixelele ke xa ubuza umhlekazi okokuba kwathathwa abaninzi apho nawe phakathi kwabo abantu abangaba u250 nabemikiswa kwizipolice stations ezohlukile nento enenziwa yona apho uyichaza.
And we also know that on the following day or so, the members of the police who were part of those experiences, the ones that you described as having been bragging around, and we've heard them laughing on some of the videos, were taken for counseling. Were you taken for counseling for your trauma?
Ngoku ke ngemini elandelayo sinolwazi kukho ubungqina apho kokuba lamapolisa lawa be brega phaya ethi thethe ngapha wena umthatha ngapha athathwa amikiswa for counseling bayohlolwa ngokomqondo. Nina namikiswa endaweni enjengale?
Zange sisi.
We were not subjected to any counseling.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Pofu. We'll now take the... so before we take the adjournment, Advocate Hemraj wants to ask a question.
Mr. Mtshamba, would you please look at quadruple M7?
Make
Have it up
sijongele
on the
umfanekiso.
screen, please.
Ozawuvezwa apha.
Quadruple M7, please. Mr. Mtshamba, do you recall indicating that that was the path that the group that was sitting in the front took?
Uyakhumbula isixelo kokuba le ndlela uyibhale ngayo phaya yindlela aba baqhankqalazi aba bebephaya phambi kwenu abehla ngayo besiza apha ngasebuhlanti. Yes, I do, ma'am.
Did you also walk along the path, that path that you've indicated by the arrows?
Nawe ke xa usihla uhle ngayo le ndlela le.
No.
I remained at the mountain.
You see, in your statement in paragraph 10, paragraph 19, I beg your pardon.
Xa siya kwi-statement sakho phaya kumhlathi weshumi
You say, most of the people who are on Kopi 1 managed to escape via the path to Nkaneng, but those of us who were on Kopi 1 took longer and walked behind the leaders, including Mr. Noki. We were all intending to escape into Nkaneng like the others.
uthi uyibeka ngolo hlobo kokuba aba babakopiwane ngabo abagqitha kuqala phaya behamba phambili nina ke nanisentabeni nisiza umva nihamba kancinci nilandela inkokheli omhlekazi uNoki.
Would you care to explain that?
uthi khawumchazele loo nto uba uchaza ntoni apha.
Mna Mtshamba andimna bendiphezu kwale kopi enkulu le.
I was on the big copy, as it indicates on the photo.
Ndisuke apha kule kopi enkulu
From there, I proceeded
ukuya kule kopi encinci.
to the smaller copy.
Ndicacisa ngalo hlobo aba bekopi 1 aba kule kopi incinci
What I explained then is that the people who were on copy 1, the small one,
bahambe kuqala.
were the first to leave in that direction drawn.
Thina aba kule kopi esibini sithathe ixesha because besizemva kwabo.
That we who were on the big copy took some time because we're coming behind those people.
Behind them from copy 1 to copy 2.
Nisuka ku copy 1 nisiya kweyesibini.
Ewe.
Yes.
Yes, I understand. And the second thing is, those persons that you say were shot while they were surrendering, where were they in relation to you on copy 3?
Ngoku ke phaya ku copy 3 aba bantu uthi badutshulwa bephakamisile bezinikela wawukufuphi kangakanani nabo wena kuloo ndawo.
Sasime ndawo nenye.
We were at the same place. We were standing together.
So were they in front of you, those of them who got shot while they were surrendering?
Aba badutshulwa babe phambi kwakho obabona badutshulwa bephakamisile.
Ewe phambi kwami.
They were in front of me, yes.
And how many of them did you see getting shot while they were surrendering with their arms up?
Babangaki ke abadutshulwa bephakamisile izandla kanje aba baphambi kwakho.
Ndithe omnye uqala udutshule ehlanzini.
I said the first one, that was the one shot in the hand
Nalapha esifubeni.
and then shot in the stomach
Nasemlenzeni.
and the leg.
Omnye udutshule apha ngasentloko.
The one was shot in the region of the head.
So would you say that you only saw 2 people getting
Ungathi
shot in
ubone
front of you?
babini kwabo bantu bedutshulwa ngolo hlobo.
Ewe.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mtshamba.
Enkosi kakhulu.
Witness will be excused. Yes, Mr. Mpofu.
I wanted to ask a question that arose. One question.
Umhlekazi Mpofu usenombuzo nje omnye cha.
What's the question?
No, it's in relation to the. Well, I'll ask it, and if it's disallowed.
No, you're asking permission to ask a question
Yes.
which arises. You've got to put it to me first.
Well, isn't
I
it
will then
easier for me to put the question? You can disallow it still, or do you want me to explain
Well,
it to you and then to the witness?
Just put the question to me,
Yeah.
and then put the question, and then if I think it arises, I'll allow you to ask. And I won't.
It's about the visibility of the place where the shootout or shooting.
That's an appropriate question. You can ask.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Mtshamba, you heard there was well, it was not a debate, a discussion that we had with the chair where we agreed that we will go and do an inspection in loco.
Yabona ivele lento kuba kwaba kwintetho aba uzawusuka iCommission iye pha iyojonga le ndawo futhi. We feel around that. Ngokuba seza kuya pha.
Yeah, and having been there so many times, I have certain views which I will point out when we do that inspection in loco.
Umuntu umhlekazi Mpofu yena so ye kaninzi phaya uzokwazi ke abe nendawo ezithize azakusibonisa zona.
But the question I want to put to you is, if one is standing somewhere in the vicinity of copy 2, as you say, you were standing on top of the rocks which are...
Apha usitsho kokuba nanime phezu kwamatye lawa phaya kwikopi le ikopi 2.
Would something that is happening along the path or near the path to Nkaneng be clearly visible or not?
Xa umi kulo ndawo ke ujonge phaya kule ndlela esiya ngasenkanini ukwazi ukubona yonke into kakuhle ekanene kukho into engenza ukuba ungaboni kakuhle.
Ubona kakuhle.
It's very clear there. It's very clear.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Right. We'll take the short adjournment now, quarter of an hour. The witness is excused.
Mhlekazi uthi umgcini sihlalo
On the basis that if it's necessary for you to come back, you'll come back when we ask you to without having to service the penal punishment. You're prepared to give that undertaking, you'll be excused.
kubekho isizathu
I take it you are prepared to give the undertaking.
asisenakubiza kodwa xa ubiza uzawubiza nje ngaphandle kokuba uthunyelwe umsila wengwe.
Ndiyabulela.
I understand. I thank you, sir.
Thank you. You'll be excused. Thank you. We'll now take the short. The
Marcus
first
Pumega,
conference
Nene.
break, quarter of an hour.
15 minutes.